I'm in a New York state of mind.
And left.
New York.
New York City is the place where they said he'd be.
Says he was the closest thing New York had to a Dirty Harry.
532.
No good deed ever goes unpunished.
That FBI agent guy, somebody told me he's got your phones tapped.
The kind of old-fashioned cop who preferred working the streets and making arrests to taking tests toward promotion.
You're assigned to a vandalism case in Athens.
All points bulletin for the Bo Dietl Show on the Gas Digital Network. Here's your host, Bo Dietl.
Like always, I'm joined with my main man, Carlo, who didn't get me the right fucking pizza yesterday. Remember, granny with pepperoni, right?
Mistakes happen.
Not regular fucking pizza, okay?
Am I going to get whacked for that?
No, that's all right. You got forgiven already. Today, we're joined by a really cool guy. Just met him on the set. He's a good friend of a dear friend of mine, Danny A. And his name is John Carlo. J-O-N.
No H.
Carlo.
That's
No
right.
H. John's a screenwriter, an actor, and we really had a great time on the set. It was one day, and I was with this guy Arquette and all these really fine actors, and it was a great thing. And I really, I want to talk to you a little bit about yourself first. You got a really interesting background. You had 3 fucking passports.
Keep it down. Don't
You
tell
speak
anybody.
3 different languages.
I don't know if that's
what are you,
legal.
a fucking spy? What's all this shit about?
I've been accused of that, but my dad's from Argentina. My mom's from Israel.
Hey, good fucking restaurant across the street.
Really?
Buenos Aires.
Steak?
Best thing.
Excellent fucking restaurant right across the street on 6th Street. Good.
Argentinians know their steak.
Good.
But I moved around a lot. I was born in California, left when I was like 2 months old, moved to Israel. Then when I was like 3, moved to Argentina, then Toronto. So I've been all over the place.
Wow. And what did you got into screenwriting and acting.
Yeah.
What was the first screenplay you did?
Well, it's a funny story. I've been an actor for like 15 years. Screenwriting came very recently because as an actor, I was just, frustrated with same bullshit auditions, going to read for waiter number 3 with 40 guys that look just like me. And I was
you do look like you could be a fucking waiter in a movie,
Oh.
You got the waiter look. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I've been one for too long.
Yeah, okay.
But-
no more fucking waiter.
Fuck that, exactly. So I decided, fuck this, I'm just going to write my own script and cast myself in my own movie.
Cool.
Do it
And
yourself.
so the first script I ever wrote was called The Lost Ones, which I kind of wrote all by myself about soldiers like suffering from PTSD and all this stuff. And it got into like the final round of the Sundance Screenwriters Lab.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I should maybe focus a little more on this writing thing. And that's how I met Danny A. Mm-hmm. Because he read that script and he was like, I read your script. I'll never make this movie, but I like your writing. So I want to hire you to write my next movie, which was First We Take Brooklyn.
And what was that about?
Yeah, we didn't really get a chance to talk with Danny about that when he was on, but it's a really cool movie. I've seen it. I
You've
love
seen
it.
it?
Yeah.
Great.
Color.
He kills it.
Color.
He kills
Nothing,
it.
Hold on one second. Color. Every fucking restaurant I go to, you've been there. Every fucking movie you've seen. What the fuck? Don't you have any life? Any social life?
I just eat and watch movies
Oh, okay.
That's the life. That's a good life to have.
and go
Yeah,
hiking.
so go ahead with the movie.
So First We Take Brooklyn was very loosely based on a real guy, this Israeli gangster that gets out of jail in Israel, moves to Brooklyn, within the span of like a year, becomes like, one of the biggest guys in like the underworld. Maybe you knew him or
Hold
came
on,
across
hold
him.
on. You haven't said the name, but I'm going to tell you the case that I worked on.
Okay.
With Barry Slotnick, Ivankov.
Ooh.
Ivankov was the godfather of the Russian mob that was
Right.
locked up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
He had a lot of guys killed down there, and we got hired to investigate, to defend this fucking
Really?
guy. He was called the John Gotti of the Russian mob.
Really?
And he was taken down, and I'll never forget, he was convicted of every fucking thing. And I'll never forget in the court, when the newspaper, after he gets convicted, and he's talking, he's angry, he's looking at Barry Slotnick, the lawyer, and all of a sudden the news media says, Barry, what did he say? Oh, he said I did a fine job. I think he was saying, I'm going to fucking cut your balls off.
Wow.
That's what he really, you've heard of him, right? Ivankov?
Of course.
Yeah, we
course.
did that. So in Brooklyn, a lot of people don't know, you have the Russian mob there.
Yeah.
You also have the Russian mob, but you also have the Israeli mob that interacts. You got a lot of Russian Jews, and everybody's
a lot of
interacting.
overlap for sure.
Overlappation, they call it. Yeah,
overlappation.
Yeah. So you got to. My friend was in it. Harvey Keitel.
Harvey. Yeah.
Harvey, I did one of his movies with him. I did The Bad Lieutenant. It was supposed to be based on me, but he was shooting fucking heroin and showing his dick. I said, I played a sergeant in the movie, and my little daughter Dana's the 2-year-old daughter. That was her big break into the movies.
Wow.
And I'm gonna tell you the truth. I love Harvey Keitel. He's one of the great actors.
Such a great guy.
He's a former Marine, and he's the real deal. So tell us a little bit about.
He smacked me in the face 46 times.
Wow, that's cool.
Which to me was an honor.
Say that.
I know. Because I wrote the script.
You're supposed to turn your fucking cheek with the slap. Don't you get that by now?
I didn't know it was coming. That's the thing. Harvey's a big improv guy. He's actor studio. He's old school. So he comes on set that day. He's like, I'm not gonna do these lines. I'm gonna do some improvisation. That's how we roll. Me and Marty and Bob, we improv.
Well,
I've
been in a few fucking movies.
Like you did.
I improv. You took The Lawyer. We'll talk about Appalachian next.
Yeah.
But I took a little fucking part that you wrote for me, and I made it something important.
You might steal the film. I'm not joking.
Get out of here.
You might steal the movie.
Excuse me. My name is not Bo. What is my name?
Irving Boseman, Esquire.
Thank you. when he give me the script, Carlo, it says lawyer. I said, Danny, I'm not a fucking lawyer. I am Irving Boseman, Esquire.
Oh, okay.
And that's how we did
My
it.
best line is when he was walking out of the office. He's like, "Go chase some fucking deer. Why don't you?"
No, not deer, son.
Squirrels.
I said like this: a sergeant, why don't you go in the fucking woods and chase some squirrels?
Killed it.
And then PJ, what's his name?
PJ Byrne.
He
Great
doesn't have
actor.
to talk. His fucking expressions are laugh out loud, just his
Amazing.
expressions. And I go, what the fuck are you supposed to be? But
And then he says, "What the fuck is an Esquire?"
all that's good shit.
Great,
But
yeah.
so that was kind of cool. So how'd that film do?
It did great. We got distributed. We had a small theatrical run. Like at some point, we were only in a few theaters, but because they do like the box office per screen, and we were only in like 4 or 5 screens, we were like the 6th movie in the country for like a weekend.
Really?
Which was amazing.
Kick me up this movie. I want to watch it
It came
over
out
the weekend.
last spring or February.
It came out last, I think, February.
Yeah.
Early
get
this
me
year.
a thing so I can watch it over the weekend.
I'll send you
a
all the links and everything.
A
linkitation.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden, Danny comes to you with this was Danny's idea about Appalachian.
It was. So we were supposed to do a whole different movie, and that kind of fell through for whatever reason. And so someone sent him, I think his attorney or someone sent him the script, not to Appalachian, but to
Appalachian. I say Appalachian. I'm a fucking dumbwit, but
That's right.
I'll still say Appalachian.
It's spelled Appalachian.
Yeah,
but I
didn't know
called
the correct spelling.
Yeah,
until
no one
Danny
knew,
told us.
and Danny didn't believe me. He's like, "No, it's Appalachian." So we called like some gas station. And I was like, "Where you guys located?" They're like, "We're in Appalachian." I was like,
just like that.
Appalachian. Who knew?
We had a fan write in that lives there, and he says, "For the first time in my life, people are calling it the right name."
Well, if I'm a dumb fucking wit, because I still call it Appalachian.
Yeah.
I mean, it won't come out of my mind. When you're a fuck up like me, half your brain just shuts off. Appalachian's Appalaka, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
We have a great scene where Robert Davi, the great Davi, he plays Vito Genovese, and they're talking about this meeting that's happening upstate, and he's like, "Where the fuck is this meeting?" And he's like, "Appalachian. Apple what? Appalachian, Apple," and we have this whole little great scene where he's like, "Apple your fucking ass."
Yeah, well,
I saw a picture of him as Genovese. He looks exactly like him.
I know.
That was
I
great.
know.
Great
Excuse me, I
casting.
look like Irving. Come on, stop it.
I know.
You are Irving.
But now when we filmed it up there, I went up to Newburgh. I got the part right here at this table with Danny, and I said, "Danny, I gotta be in it. I wish I could have a little bit more of a role, but you want to know something? I'm very happy to come in there, do my thing, and I'm just happy to be part of it. Thank
We're
you.
so appreciative that you came up there and he gave it.
You know, I drove from fucking Newburgh out to the Hamptons.
Right
I
after.
fell asleep 4 fucking times in the car.
Oh, God.
I fell asleep from exit 40 to exit 42. I woke up. The car was still driving, so I used to do that when I was a cop. I would work all night. I don't know how I ever got home.
I want to talk to you about your career as a police officer.
Fuck me. I talk about my career all the time.
You're a living legend, Bo.
Let's talk about Apalaka.
Apalaka.
Now, people understand now.
Yeah.
And if you watch The Godfather, you'll get a premise of it. Back in the 1950s, organized crime was all over the place. Not until that fucking criminal Kennedy, the attorney general, started exposing it,
Right.
and that might have been part of his demise too.
Yeah.
But in reality, organized crime was a way of life back then, and it was something in my neighborhood in Ozone Park growing up, his neighborhood in the Bronx, and they kept it kind of to themselves. Unless you borrowed money, unless you owned a thriving business, then they became your partners. So organized crime is out there. We had the 5 original crime family. Now, a lot of people don't know this all started back in the 1930s with the 5 crime families, with the Genovese, the Gambinos, and they had different people's names there. And eventually in 1956, 56, right?
57.
57.
Yeah.
They had a meeting up in upstate New York. It's depicted a little bit softly and loosely in The Godfather.
And also analyze this.
Right,
The intro.
Right, when you see these guys running through the fucking
Yep.
woods,
Mm-hmm.
and that's basically, they had a meeting, and then you had some dimwit fucking cops up there, and I will call them dimwits. It was like Gomer fucking Pyle before Gomer Pyle, and these guy ends up pulling the car over with my client, a guy named Carmine
Galante.
And which family was he running right there? Well, he wasn't running. He was one of the underbosses, I think.
Yeah, he was in the Lucchese family, which became the Genovese family.
Right.
So
he was one of the underbosses
Yeah.
of Vito Genovese.
Right.
And now what happens in the movie is I was so you set. You guys were actually building a barbershop where the other guy gets fucking whacked.
Albert
Anastasia. And I remember when my client got killed in Brooklyn, Carmine Galante, and a lot of people, I'll say it first now on this show. There's a picture of him sitting back. He was eating a bowl of macaroni, I think, and he's fucking shot in the fucking eye. I think they shot him in the eye, and he has the cigar still in his mouth. Now I'm going to tell you something you didn't know, and I don't give a fuck.
What is it?
Statute of limitations are over. My ex-sergeant is one of the great sergeants of organized crime. His name was Joe Coffey, who I loved dearly. He was one of my first sergeants, one of the great organized crime. He locked up John Gotti. He went after him.
Wow.
He was a tough Irishman. I loved him. We
What was
lost
his name?
him. Joe Coffey.
Joe Coffey.
Yeah, and Coffey the Irish way with the Y on the end,
Gotcha.
not coffee drink, you know?
Right.
And he was one of the great detectives, sergeants in organized crime, worked for the New York State Organized Crime Group and all that. So what happens is when he gets shot, fucking Joe takes the cigar off the ground and puts it in his fucking mouth. And that's the famous picture.
Wow.
You heard it first on Bo's Tough Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so now basically tell us what you do in the movie.
So this is rewinding back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Appalachian.
Yes.
So we got this script that was not great. It was very like focused on the mafia, but it was very like caricature. Like, hey, bada bing, bada boom, forget about it. Like, it wasn't real.
Drum up, drum down, all
Exactly.
that shit. Yeah.
And so Danny was like, I love the story and the concept. So why don't we rewrite the whole script, which I did from the beginning. And we talked about this meeting and what spurred the meeting and how it got busted and why and all the ramifications because of that. And it was really interesting to learn that this guy, Ed Croswell, this, Joe Schmo, small town cop, chasing squirrels, getting cats out of trees, changed law enforcement forever because of him
pulling over.
Yeah, Galante. And then the meeting, J. Edgar Hoover was forced to publicly acknowledge the mob, which led to creating the Organized Crime Task Force, which eventually led to the RICO Act.
Yeah.
And now that's what they use to bust all the big guys, the RICO Act.
Well, I was going back in the late 60s. I used to drive Ralph Scopo, who was the Colombo family head guy. He was one of the underbosses, but he was in charge of the most lucrative part of the mob.
Really?
And he was in charge of all the building trades. So all the money with carpenters, laborers, ironworkers, operators, engineers, all the money was filtered through Ralph Scopo and passed down to the 5 crime families. Castellano was head of one. Yeah, the Chin was there. Fat Tony was representing, but Chin was really the boss in the back of that. And a lot of people don't understand This was really big buckaroos.
Wow.
And in the indictment, you can read it, the commission indictment in 1985, which I worked on that case. I tried to, I had retired. Everybody said, oh, Bo was working for the mob. I was retired, and then I was hired by Barry Slotnick again to defend Ralph Scopo. And Ralph Scopo says, oh, go see this contractor here, that contractor. So I was a young detective, New York City retired guy, my black cashmere coat. I go knock on the door of some fucking construction, office there, big major office, executive office, and I'd say, tell Tony Lip, Bo Dietl's here, Ralphie Scopo sent me. You hear noise, people running out the fucking back doors. I go back to the Metropolitan Correction Facility in Brooklyn there, and I said, Ralphie, everybody I go to see, when I mention your name, they jump out the back fucking window. I was not able to talk to anybody because they thought I was going to whack them.
Right.
So I was really, I'll be honest with you, I was very not too much progress with the interviews. And eventually that was the case that really, really took down organized crime, was the commission case in 1985 was when the indictments came down. Subsequently, my friend John Gotti whacks Castellano. Johnny becomes the boss, and the next thing we all know what happened. It's been decimated beyond anything, and there's certain amount of romantic criminality about organized crime, and I still used to like the old days when a wise guy would come into a fucking restaurant with 4 or 5 guys. Everybody's kissing everybody.
Right.
Oh, pick up that check. Pick up beep, bop, boop. There's something cool.
Yeah.
Something cool about him that had a romantic flair. Now, people are going to say, yeah, right, Bo, but if they killed your fucking brother, shot him in the head, you wouldn't think it's romantic. You're exactly right. But there was something else. There was 2 sides of it. Violence, man, I've seen a lot of bodies. And I actually locked up Henry Hill. Not Henry Hill. What was his name? Jimmy Burke, that De Niro plays. I locked him up on 2 murders that Henry Hill ratted him out on.
No way.
Yeah. And I grew up with Burke from Lefferts Boulevard. He had a bar on Lefferts Boulevard. So I touched upon all these fucking wise guys over my life. But when I became a cop, they used to call me Bo the Cop. Even John Gotti used to say, oh, this Bo the Cop. And the first time I saw Sammy Gravano, we were in a bar in Denoy Bar restaurant. I was going to meet John Gotti after I retired for dinner. And I'm at the bar, and all of a sudden he's looking at me, Sammy. He goes, what the fuck is the rat cop doing? I said, excuse me? We almost went out to fisticuffs. Johnny Gotti walks in and says, Sammy, this is Bo the Cop. What the fuck are you doing? And I mean, but my life has touched upon growing up. But one thing about it, I could sit anywhere, I could go to any federal grand jury. I have never done anything with them. They actually picked up on a tape, Fat Tony Salerno, on a tape saying, you don't ask that fucking detective, Bo Dietl, or his fucking Irish partner, Tommy Collar, you don't ask him for a license plate check. These guys are good cops. None gets raped up in East Harlem in 1981, 27 crosses cop. Tony calls me to the fucking Colonial.
Wow. And
he's sitting there with a cigar. He goes, what are you and your fucking Irish partner? What are you doing about these guys that raped the fucking nun? Now they all become religious. So I said, Tony, we're not involved with this case. We're on the street locking up murders, gangs, and taking them all the people who were damaging the people on the street. That's what I wanted. People were robbing, murdering people on the street. And then all of a sudden it was like an epiphany, whatever the fuck you call it. And then we get involved in it. And I asked for 3 days. I had nothing. It was just little tips. Yeah. And it all was a puzzle. Eventually, Tommy and I lock up, one in Chicago, one in New York. And then I'll never forget, we would walk into Jimmy Wesson's, the famous Jimmy Wesson's. At that time, you have Castellano and there. Della Croce was still alive at that point. And you had Della Croce was there, Johnny Gotti, all the wise guys. Then you had the Westies there at the bar. Then you had Joe Coffey and I and a couple of art detectives be at the other end of the bar. We would drink all night, and then at the end of the night, sometimes fisticuffs would fucking arise. But nobody got locked up. It was like the Westie guys, we respected them. We know they were killers. And eventually Joe Coffey would get them. I was never involved with organized crime then. I knew everybody, but I drove me in fucking the worst areas of New York. Let me get the scumbags killing the people on the street, robbing, raping. That's what I wanted to do.
Which you did.
Yeah. It was great being a cop. And even when I retired back 2000 something, when they went after John Gotti Jr., this other fucking guy I never met, Elite, made an allegation about me that he saw me taking money from Richard Gotti when I was a detective in 1985. No, 86. One little problem. I retired February 15th, 1985. I did work on a commission case. I never worked for John Gotti. That was my job. I'm an investigator for the defense, and that's what I did. If I did, I would have told him go fuck himself. So now he made this false allegation. I call up the U.S. Attorney's Office. I said he's a fucking liar. If he can lie about Bo Dietl, he can lie about John Gotti Jr. Hence, 5 trials, John Gotti Jr. beat because this fucking witness, Elite Day, was a bad witness. So, yeah. Well, let's talk more about you.
I want to talk about you, Bo. I know it's your show, but
yeah, you got to set up to the people about a little bit about the movie.
Yeah.
At the conference, about the raid, the conference, they thought that someone set the fucking thing up, but really it was a fucking fluke. Am I correct?
That's the thing. It was the guy who was the cop in the town. I think he worked like different mob cases in Scranton, New York, not Scranton, Pennsylvania. Yeah, New York. And he was kind of like poking around, and when he pulled over Galante, he was like, "What's this guy doing in town?"
Oh, but he worked in a bit of organized crime?
He did.
I thought he was just a fucking tree-hugging asshole.
He was.
Oh, okay.
But he was fascinated by this stuff. And then so he started noticing all these cars coming into town. It's a town of 300 people. And all these Cadillacs are rolling in. He goes to a restaurant, can't order a steak.
What was that one that he was sitting in, the car? You guys are pretty descriptive about what was that car with the overhead? Come on, you wrote the fucking lines.
I know.
It was something with a 165 cubic inch.
Chevy, Chevy Bel Air, like 185 cubic inch overhead twin.
David Arquette was so fucking good. I mean, to play part of him.
What a great actor.
Play opposite, and that lieutenant kid was really a great actor too.
I know.
What's his name?
The older,
the lieutenant.
Yeah, his name is.
Jim McCaffrey.
There we go. James
That's why
McCaffrey.
Carlo. When I can't think, Carlo thinks for me.
Attaboy.
All right, but
sorry, James, you're the best.
But in reality, so he had some basic. Organized crime involvement in Scranton.
And then all the pieces just fell in his lap. He tried to go buy a steak at the local restaurant. No meat, no fish. Everything was bought up. Then he realized that every single hotel room in town was booked for one night tomorrow. Cool. And he just put the pieces together, and with like him and 3 guys, basically like 3 cop cars, just made a roadblock and waited for the wise guys to kind of leave. Then someone saw one of the cops. Everyone started running, but there was nowhere to go.
They ran
because
through
there was
the woods.
one road in, one road out, and they just had a roadblock. And they took them like 8 hours to arrest everybody because they had 3 cars.
They were running through the woods.
Yeah, but how are you going to transport like 68 wise guys in 3 cop cars?
I would have cuffed them to trees and shit. Cuffed them around a tree, handcuffed, and then eventually
make them walk.
And then come eventually with a Jeep and stuff them in the back. That's all.
But they all got off. Every single one of them.
Yeah, because there was no evidence to stop them.
Exactly.
There was no what's that called? Come on, Carlo.
There was no probable cause.
Thank you. Carlo, you're a little slow on that one.
I got you, Carlo.
No probable cause, yeah.
Right.
And all that shit got thrown out, but I tell you, I can't fucking wait. And I better be invited to the fucking premiere, otherwise
I will make
Danny
sure
and you got a problem.
Bo,
I'm part of you guys.
I know. And you did a great job. You really did. We were just editing your scene, I think, day before yesterday. And
you gave me a little shit scene, but I had to make it.
Yeah, but you made a meal out of it, Bo. I'm serious. Like, you took this tiny role and made it a memorable scene.
Well, you know what? When you understand, and when you're playing with actors, and that PJ kid is
amazing.
He was in the Wolf of Wall Street with me, and just his expressions. I mean, it's just so funny. He's sitting there like, he's watching the action. And then it was just a funny thing. I just looked at him like when he was making these stupid things. I go, "What the fuck are you supposed to be?" And he goes, "What's an Esquire?" But it's funny. We're investigating a case in Indiana with a young girl, Lauren Spira. She disappeared about 6 years ago. And I'll never forget. I went to the fucking chief of police, and I go up there with 3 homicide guys. We're trying to find out. We know she's dead. We only get into the case 4 months after she disappears. Right. So when we get up there, we see what they did. They interviewed 10 people. We interviewed 100 people. They did a fucked up job. So I go on I was on Fox News, one of them, And they go, well, when you investigate cases of private, do you get a lot of cooperation? I said, most of the time we get great cooperation because it's all, and I told the chief, it's not about us breaking this case. We'll give you everything we got. We want to find this little girl, and we want to use our experience of hundreds of years of homicide investigating to break this case. Right. And we'll give you everything. You can have your news conference. We're not interested in that. And the guy kept going, nope. I said, is there anything else you could talk to? Nope. So I go on TV and I said, it was like talking to fucking Gomer Pyle. So that went viral. Bo calls chief of police Gomer Pyle. And I had to apologize. I only apologized for one reason. Because the family just felt like, we weren't getting any cooperation. Now we really would. And I'll call him fucking Gomer Pyle again. If I saw him right now, I'd say, you're fucking Gomer Pyle. You don't know how to investigate a missing fucking person. And this little girl, if you investigate it properly, you would have found out who kidnapped her and killed her probably.
Yeah.
It just pisses me off. And like you say, even up there in bumfuck New York during this time. But yet this guy was a lot sharper.
He was.
Than I perceived him to be.
He was.
Yeah.
The real Ed Croswell.
Is he still alive, Ed?
No, he passed away. He passed away, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah.
I think.
Was he ever acknowledged of what he did?
He was. After this, I think they promoted him. He became like one of the lead investigators on this new organized crime task force in New York State.
Well, that was called Joe Coffey was part of that. It was the New York State organized crime task force.
Right.
And I had Eddie worked for me. He was the chief investigator, and Joe Coffey was one of the chief investigators too. I tell you, you know what? I'm happy I never worked with it because I'd be a hypocrite. Because I used to go out to joints, and to this day, I have respect for everybody in organized crime. Because you know why? I wasn't like Sonny Grasso, my friend, who was a detective. He went after organized crime. And how could you expect you send a guy away for 30 years, you have dinner with him, then you lock him up? I couldn't do that. Give me the scumbags on the street robbing the old ladies and the kids raping, and let me get them. And then I could go home and I could feel good about myself. Because if I went after organized crime people where I grew up with, I would feel like a real douchebag.
Right.
And I couldn't do that. So that's it.
But that's why you're one tough cop.
Oh. So how
did that movie come about? I'm just dying to know. It's about you, right?
Of course.
So how did that happen? I'm dying to know.
Well, I wrote the book One Tough Cop after I retired.
Right.
And first let's start. 1985 I retired. Nick Pileggi puts me on the cover of New York Magazine.
Yeah.
How New York lost their top detective. Everybody in fucking California is calling me up. I met with Pacino and Bregman. I met with Stallone and his producers. I actually met with Tony Scott out there, everybody. They were flying me out to California, staying at the Bel Air Hotel, fucking swans, all kinds of shit. And I would be out there flying every week out there. They're paying the freight, first class, everything. So they were all trying to get my rights. Finally, we sell it to somebody from Lorimar Pictures. And I really believe Les Moonves was there at the time. Because Les and I became very friendly, and I'm pretty sure he was there. So they hired a screenwriter.
Yeah.
But he did fucking rawhide and shit. So, I mean, he wasn't really a great.
He didn't get it.
I had a bad one. So now you're talking about.
I wish I was around back then.
Yeah, but you got to remember something. This is 85. Nothing happens. I write the book, One Tough Cop, in 88. Again, there's all kinds of interest in the book, and nothing happening. They had a couple of shots at it, of screenplays on it, shit. All of a sudden, fast forward 10 years later, I think it was 97, and Marty Bregman calls me. He goes, well, we got a screenplay here. We got $7 million in the tank, and we got this guy Mark Wahlberg. We're gonna hire him, and we got this director. He's a bit of a fucking junkie. He did The Bad Lieutenant. What's his
Abel
name?
Ferrara.
Abel Ferrara.
Right.
So I meet with Abel Ferrara. He's there like this. He's stoned out of his fucking mind all the time. So now for the first 6 months of preparation, I got Mark Wahlberg. When I first met him, I said, you're too fucking skinny to be Bo Dietl. You got to be believable.
Yeah.
And now we start working. I'm working out with him. We fly to California. And Mark and I became very close in 6 months. All of a sudden, Marty Bregman calls me to his office. He goes, well, I'm going to get rid of Mark Wahlberg, and we're getting rid of Abel Ferrara. What? Well,
man.
why?
Why?
And I'm an executive fucking producer
Right.
this day. I said, why? Well, Mark's lawyer wants too much with the trailer. Yeah, it was all about money, all about fucking money.
Right.
So then they let go of it. And to this day, you could ask Mark Wahlberg. We'll try to get him on one of our podcasts. He was really upset about not playing Bo Dietl, one tough guy. He would have been great.
He would have
so
been great.
now Marty says to me, we got this guy, Bruno Beretta. He's from Brazil. He's a director. His claim to fame was he fucking banging Amy Irving. He was married to Amy Irving. He was eating loads of Steven Spielberg's loads because he was fucking married. So Bruno ate her, he ate Steven Spielberg's loads.
Okay.
He married her after that. Okay.
He didn't absorb any talent that way, though.
Well, put it this way.
No.
He's from fucking Brazil. How do you direct Bo Dietl? The Bo Dietl story
Exactly.
from Brazil.
Right.
I mean, fucking how many fucking Brazil? What the fuck's in Brazil?
The
Nothing.
boy from Ipanema.
Yeah, doing the mambo and the bumbo. So now all of a sudden, he goes like this. You got to pick a new actor, Bo. He goes, why don't you look at this guy, Matt Dillon and Stephen Baldwin.
Right.
So I didn't know Stephen Baldwin and Matt Dillon really, but I looked at some of their shit. So I used to go and drink with the boys. We'd have the crew. Joey Pots and Pans, Mike the Russian, Shelley the Taylor, all our crew, and
Yeah.
Joseph Abood. We used to meet at 5:30 over at the Four Seasons at my round table. We used to smoke illegal fucking Cuban cigars. It was really cool every afternoon. So I'm sitting there, and also who walks in? Sly. I had met Sly back in the 80s.
Right.
So, hey, Sly, he goes, hey, Bo, how the fuck you doing? He goes, don't you want me to be in your fucking movie? I hear it's finally getting over. I said, well, here's the story. I had this kid, Mark Wahlberg, who I loved.
Yeah.
And I still do. I think Mark's a great guy.
Wonderful
and
guy.
His success is beyond anything, and God bless him and his family. And the next thing is I said, well, they fired Mark. He goes, what the fuck? Who fired? I said, Marty. Next thing he goes, you got to pick. I said, I got to pick between Matt Dillon and
Baldwin.
Stephen Baldwin. So I said, what do you think, Sly? He goes, well, you know what, Bo? Matt Dillon, he's been around a lot. He's like a broad that's been fucked by everybody. The other kid is like a fucking virgin.
Yeah.
I go with the virgin. That's how I picked Stephen Baldwin.
Wow.
And Stephen did a nice thing. Day one of filming, I'll never forget. We're up in fucking Toronto, and we're
You
filming.
shot in Toronto?
Toronto and New York.
Okay.
So we're up in Toronto, and now I'm an executive producer. I'm no fucking dickhead. I'm the fucking man too,
Yeah.
As even with Marty.
So you were on set?
every day.
Wow.
So next thing that happens is they're in a scene with the wise guys in the back, and Bruno's there with the headset on, and something's not right. And I go, excuse me, Bruno, excuse me. I'm tapping on, being very respectful. He turns around and takes his earphones, and he goes, can't you see I'm directing a movie? I said, you motherfucker, don't you yell at me. I'll push you through that fucking window. And he goes like this, I quit. And he runs out of there. Marty Bregman's sitting there laughing.
Oh, my God.
He runs off the fucking set. He goes back to, I think, with the Four Seasons in Toronto or the Ritz-Carlton, one or the other. And next thing, Marty's there, and he's laughing his ass off at me. I said, what the fuck you laughing at? He goes, we don't have a director. I said, you did enough fucking movies. You did Serpico. You did you fucking direct. Fuck him, this fucking Brazilian cock fucking sucker. Don't yell at me. Fuck him. So after a while, I calmed down, so I went over. I knocked on his door. I said, hey, Bruno. I said, look at Bruno. You got to understand something. You got to treat people with respect. I treat you with respect, but you got to treat me. I'm not a fucking punk. I don't give a fuck who you are.
It's your story.
You're not going to, and exactly, I said, if you want it real, I lived it. It was me.
Right.
So wouldn't you want me to add, but I'm direct. Okay, I went very quietly to you. And make a long story short, he came back. He directed it. We had a movie. I think the movie was pretty good. The script I fucking hated.
Yeah.
They had me killing about 35 fucking people, which I didn't do. And I said to him in the beginning, I said, I didn't kill nobody. What the fuck we got? Then he had me fucking my best friend's girlfriend. I said, that ain't my fucking style. I banged fucking 27 fucking broads a day. What the fuck do I need to fuck my best friend's girlfriend or someone, his ex-wife? I don't play that fucking game.
Right.
It ain't in my DNA.
Yeah.
So another time on the set, one of the funny things, Stephen Baldwin's there. He's got his arm around this gal that I was seeing, Yolanda at that time. So he's kissing her neck, beautiful girl. And I said, oh, that's cute, enough. And he kisses her again on the neck. I said, I'm serious. I said, it's enough. And he's there. He goes, I'm Bo Dietl. And he starts kissing her. I walk over to him like this, John. Smacked him in the fucking face. He goes, you hit me. I said, you might be playing Bo Dietl in this fucking movie. You ain't Bo Dietl. After that, he was calm. Then we had Chris Penn in there, and we had Amy Irving was in it. And the girl is pretty hot, but I think she plays both
Gina
sides.
Gershon.
Gina Gershon. I think she plays both sides of the aisle.
Well, she's in that
I don't
movie
mind.
Bound.
Lesbianics turn me fucking on.
She's gorgeous.
No, lesbianic. She can munch a tape while I'm hitting her. I'll take that anytime. Anytime. Is that sexual harassment saying that?
Nope.
Okay, good. As long as we keep ourselves.
What do you think, Irving Boseman Esquire?
I think that I'd like to hit her as she's eating another broad.
Bang. Done. Love it.
If I wasn't involved. But I'm now a one-woman person in love. So that was the old days.
Right.
But I still thought that would have been kind of cool, right?
God bless.
All right, but all of a sudden we're talking about Carlo comes up with a little idea for you. How about Little Appalachian? Carlo, your idea.
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to kind of get more of your idea on when you're doing the research for this movie.
Yeah.
There's mafioso from all across the country, and there's a lot of people that don't even get a lot of press or movies, like the Joseph Barber, and the Buffalino crime family. I mean, they were very powerful, and they don't even get any real, media attention. So what did you uncover in the research and in the process of doing this that maybe people don't know about, or like what kind of tangent did you?
So what was interesting was the Buffalino crime family, for example. I had no idea, but Buffalo, the city, like upstate New York, was probably had the most saturation of organized crime at the time because of the border. And prior to that, during Prohibition, all the booze was coming in through Niagara Falls, over the border.
And you had the biggest Italian group is in Toronto, outside of Italy.
Yes, it's true. I grew up in Toronto. There were a lot of
nice titty clubs.
But hit jobs and a lot of organized crime happening on the west end of Toronto. There was this restaurant I used to go to, I think Nino de Versa. And it was
they had the first Milos. This comes out of Toronto. The first Milos. Well, I remember eating in Milos then. Right. Then they had the great one on 55th Street. I go all the time. Right. But, but going back to this, and we were talking about Little Appalachian.
Oh, the Little Appalachian.
What was that meeting?
That was another meeting, I think 10 years later, in 1966.
Stella Restaurant.
At the Stella Restaurant in Queens. There was 13 mobsters rounded up, including Santo Trafficante, Carlos Marcello, Gambino, Joe Colombo, Agnello Della Croce.
Wow.
And that was kind of got just as much attention. And those guys were equally as powerful, and nobody really talks too much about them.
Interesting. I didn't know about that. That's really interesting.
Well, that could be the sequel, or the prequel, or cockle, whatever the fuck you call it.
Well, I say Trafficante and Carlos Marcello were the people behind killing Kennedy.
Oh, come on. What is this, your conspiracy theory or what?
I've heard it. I don't know how much is true about
Carlo, you're making a big, strong statement on my podcast. You better have some fucking evidence.
We can talk about it
Are you
next
getting the evidence from from that other movie that I'm in coming out? The Irishman?
That's a part of it too. That's another conspiracy.
Yeah, well, you know what? My name is fucking Joe Glimko. I'm a fucking capo from Chicago.
Is that you playing the Irishman?
I played it. I introduce Robert De Niro, who I bring up from Philly. I say to him, there's only one fucking reason you're here. You'll do what we got to do with these union cocksuckers, and then you go back to Philly. Nobody knows who the fuck you are. That's why you're here. Then I introduce him to a guy named Al Pacino, who plays Jimmy Hoffa.
Wow.
And I talk about him being this over the top. He's a big, tall guy. The Irishman, his name was Frank Sheeran, and he wrote a book, and he wrote a very interesting book. Is it 100% fact? The Godfather was not 100% fact. It was a great movie. I'll sit here today and I'll tell you, this movie, The Irishman, will be better than Goodfellas.
I hear it's the it's going to be the greatest movie.
And I hear
Scorsese's ever made.
And I didn't play opposite, but I hear Joe Pesci steals that show.
That's what I heard. I heard it's Pesci's movie.
Yeah, we're excited. I'm excited.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
You got a lot going on, Bo.
Yeah, but you know what? I think life is like this. How many more breaths do you think I got in life? Maybe 10. So you know what you do? you enjoy your fucking life, and you do. I just got back from Capri, Italy for a fucking 4-day wedding, and I flew on private yachts, planes, trains, every fucking thing in the world. But you know what it's about? Enjoying life. Don't sit back, get jealous. If you want to be a screenwriter like you, you want to do something, you go for it. Because if you sit back and say, oh, I could have done it, do the fuck. Write a book. Do what you got to do.
It's exactly how I started writing. I was just sick and tired of waiting. As an actor, you just wait. You wait for someone to give you an audition. You wait for someone to give you a role. And as a writer, you control the material. You take matters into your own hands and you create something. Yeah. And so it's great advice.
Well, we're going to wind down. I just want you to give some plugitations to everything that you have around you.
Thank you.
Where they can make contact with you, and all your social media shit and all that. Yeah.
Great. Instagram, I am John Carlo. On Facebook, just John Carlo. The movie's called Appalachian.
Spell it.
APALACHIN.
Got that.
And that's on Instagram as Appalachian Film, or on Facebook just Appalachian. We're getting a website together very soon that we're going to put the trailer on and everything.
When do you guys figure you guys will be ready to roll with it?
So we're like trying really hard to get a rough cut ready for Sundance. So
when is Sundance?
The Sundance Festival is at the end of January. But the deadline's coming up real quick. Because Danny A is a 2-time alum, they're giving us a little extra time.
Great.
So we're going to send them a rough cut, like hopefully next few weeks. But the movie won't be ready until probably next summer.
What are you guys doing about the music in the movie?
We have a very talented composer.
You're gonna do all.
We're going to do a lot of original stuff, and then we're going to probably buy the rights to a couple classic, iconic 50s songs. I'm not sure.
You got to have the music.
Absolutely.
Changes the whole fucking value.
Of course.
Yeah.
You have any recommendations?
Do I have any recommendations? Well, you had the Platters back then.
Right.
Just look up Platter music.
Okay.
The Platters. You probably could get it for a good price.
Yeah.
And I think something about The Great Pretender. There were some great
music.
platters, and that would be really in that. And in reality, you had fucking Elvis popping up around that time, 57.
Yeah, and 57 was when Jailhouse Rock came out.
So you just Google-ize top hits of 57.
Elvis, though.
No, but you Google-ize top hit, and you're going to get a lot of unknown songs, but everyone knows them.
Right. When I was writing,
and that kind of stuff.
I was listening to a lot of 50s music to kind of get in the zone.
Yeah, and like as a kid growing up in the 50s, I remember shrimp boats are coming and sailing tonight. You better hurry, hurry home. There were songs that would resonate to people. Oh, I know that song. And there'll be people, young people, that will recognize the music. Probably could buy it at a pretty good price because some of these old groups could use the cash.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
John, I just want to, we didn't really get into it. So you just mentioned that you were trying to get in the mindset of the 50s. So how did you get in that mindset? How did you approach, you said when you originally got the script, you needed to rework it.
Yeah.
How do you get into it and really get a sense of what it was like in the 50s and, on the police side and the mafia side? And how did you tackle that?
For the biggest influence was the music, for sure. Like that just gets you in the zone. And then, God bless the internet. You could find anything and everything online. And so I just did a bunch of research. But at the end of the day, we needed to create a compelling story. You can't just make a movie about mobsters. There has to be like an arc.
Right.
And so Ed Croswell, the cop, he's our like Rocky. He's an underdog. No one believes him. Everyone thinks he's full of shit. He's going up against the mob and everyone's laughing at him.
And the fucking scumbag lawyer makes fun of him. Yeah.
Exactly. And so he finding out about him was the key.
Did you interview any of his family members or anything?
Unfortunately not. There wasn't that much available online either. So I just had to kind of create this character. Yeah. And that's what I think is going to make this film is the audience has someone to root for.
1957, I remember, I was 7 years old. I remember the things that come up in my mind. Every fucking body was smoking. Everybody was smoking.
All the time.
On TV, everybody smoked during sitcoms, everything. Smoke, smell that fucking burning shit all over the place. And then that 57 Chevy was a beautiful one with that tail light in the back.
Oh,
I mean, things really, it was before the age of the Cold War. And then, you know, in the early 60s, you went into the threat with Russia. As a kid growing up, you touched upon each one, but the 50s seemed like a great time. People used to go for picnics in parks. You didn't have to worry about some fucking animal coming out with a fucking knife.
Right.
And I was just in Budapest, Hungary. Budapest, Hungary is the epitome of what it was like in America in the 50s. Families out there, and they have like a central park there, picnicking, merry-go-rounds, kids playing water fountains. It's beautiful, music playing. And I said, wow, you know what they did? They kept the fucking boat people out of fucking Hungary. They didn't allow these fucking tread-lived scumbag cocksuckers from Syria robbing, raping Germany. You go to Germany, you go to Paris, you go to London, you go to fucking, I was in Greece, that place, what's it called, the capital?
Athens.
That fucking place. You go to Rome, these fucking boat people, these savages. I wouldn't mind if they were nice people. All they want to do is shake you down, hustle you, fucking animals. Did you see what they did? Those other kids in Athens, that black guy, about a year and a half, they kicked him to death. They beat him to death on the ground. An American black guy. And they didn't like the way he was like 6'5", good-looking fella, a model. And they beat him to death. It was on CBS News today. They're going to trial, these cocksuckers.
Wow.
But it pisses me off. I love, you know what I love? I love the memories of how it was in the 50s. And your movie brought me back to thinking about the good times and how you felt good, how you went and Carvel just came out. Carvel ice cream just came out.
It was interesting because not writing it, but making the film, you know, our art department and like all the production designers, we had all these props and everything.
Yeah.
And
Well,
when
the
you
cars
realized
alone,
the
that-
cars, the clothing, but there was no plastic in the 50s. So things were made to last. Everything was built with quality and like longevity.
Wait
in
a
mind.
second. When did those fucking plastic seat covers come?
That came in the 60s. Plastic.
Sure?
Yeah. Like I'm talking about plastic material like
Oh,
this
because
thing.
all I remember,
And,
my aunt Phyllis had fucking plastic on her fucking couches, and we couldn't even sit on them upstairs. We had to go to the basement.
Right.
When you come over to visit Aunt Phyllis, Uncle Frankie, he's kind of sick now.
Yeah.
But he's 90-something. He was in World War II. And all I remember, we go to the fucking basement. I snuck up one day to the main floor, and everything had fucking plastic on it.
Right,
And
right.
You don't remember
No,
that.
yeah. I mean, that's an
This is an
Italian,
Italian thing.
They think
sure.
the living room's a museum. You
Yeah,
can't go in
nobody
there.
sit there,
It's just for
and they
display.
put
Don't
fucking
use
and
it.
then the plastic becomes fucking yellow.
Right.
And it's disgusting. And then they end up fucking dying. Nobody ever sat on the fucking
I
couch.
know. What's the point?
It's a
crazy.
showroom. Nobody. It's so
That's
weird.
so funny.
But you know, we really appreciate you coming, John.
Thank
and,
you so much for having me.
You know, it's just the podcast is taking off, and you throw it on your social. We'll hit them up on all our shit.
I will.
We got
Absolutely.
about 30,000, I think, followers on
for you.
whatever that shit is. We're on. What is it all called? all
We're
that
on
shit?
Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on everything.
Everything.
But before we go,
Yeah.
John, we do a little something on this show.
Okay.
It's called Punk of the Week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We pick somebody who deserves a little kick in the ass.
Oh. Okay.
And Bo picks every week, but we can get your opinion too.
What's your punk of the week?
Wow.
Something that bothered you.
A person or a thing?
It could be anything.
Man, that's a tough one.
It could be a concept.
A concept. Let me think about this. Shit. Punk of the week. Ooh, I'm drawing a blank here.
Well,
you
I'm
help me
going to
out?
give you mine. It's
Okay.
gonna
Okay.
be again
Okay.
a congresswoman wearing James Brown's fucking wig on backwards. Maxine Waters is punkette of the week. Shut up already and go on. Retire already. Go fucking knit.
Okay.
There it is.
That's the Punk of the Week.
There it is.
That's what Bo thinks about Maxine Waters.
She has fucking James Brown's fucking wig on backwards on her fucking head.
It's a strange hairdo.
It's not a hairdo, son. It's a fucking wig. Say it like it is. It's not racist to say she's wearing a wig because she's wearing a fucking wig.
All right. It's a wig.
There it is.
Yeah.
And
All
John,
right.
we'll let you have the last word. Anything else you want to mention about Appalachian? Any upcoming projects?
Appalachian.
Appalachian.
See, don't
Come on.
fucking
Are we gonna do?
Appalachian.
Are we gonna do the sequel to One Tough Cop? I have a good idea. For
Listen, let's talk about this because I think it would be an interesting story.
Carlo, send him the original book.
I'm serious.
One Tough Cop, the book.
Okay.
when you read it, how it was written with italics. Ken Gross and I wrote it together.
Why don't we remake it?
Well, the real story, instead of the fucking me killing 35 fucking people, the real story is, you can't believe it, hanging guys off fucking roofs. I never killed nobody, so there's no statute of limitations is over.
I think what's interesting is, you grew up next door to Gotti.
Oh, I hung out with Ralphie Scopo.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't know in the early 60s in Ozone Park, we had a massive heroin problem with all the wise guys' kids. I know 10 kids that died.
Wow.
I used to go on the railroad tracks. I used to hold Ralph Scopo's arm with a strap. Ralphie Scopo Jr. He had the eyedropper with a bottle cap with fucking cotton in there, heat up the heroin, and he used to shoot up. Now, the father, who was the big wise guy, loved me because I was built like a fucking brick shit. I push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. I was #1 individual every high school. So I was in shape. Every other kid couldn't come to the house, or they would have to wear long-sleeve shirts. Next thing is, the father took a liking to me. Hence, I became a laborer, then an iron worker on the World Trade. It's a great story.
Wow.
And I'm telling you something. Send him the book.
I'd love to read it.
Yeah.
Please.
I think a cool thing, throwback, would be like, remember those old 70s movies like Charles Bronson and James Coburn?
Yeah.
The tough guys.
The
hard
real
times,
masculine,
that
tough
kind of stuff.
guy, not pretty boys.
You gotta remember. I took down Nicky Bond's bodyguards. I got locked in a cell with them, beat the fucking shit out.
Wow.
You gotta remember, a guy fired at me from here, across the room, 5 times point blank, and he's pulling the trigger. The bullets went that way. And then he throws the guns down. He goes, "You got me." I said, "Motherfucker, your day just began." Boom, boom, boom. He ended up in the hospital.
Wow.
Then I go in his cell with Nicky Bond's bodyguards, the Hayes brothers. And I used to do decoys, so I had theatrical makeup on.
Really?
So these guys killed the Mount Vernon cop. They had a shootout with my guys. Next thing that happens is they don't want their Polaroid taken. So I tell the detectives, cuff me, put me in the cell. We'll get him. I end up fighting with them in there. I had to keep them on the ground with the metal chairs, beat them into the ground. But the only problem is they handcuffed me. Mickey Moran comes from the back room and hits me in the fucking head with a blackjack.
Oh my
Thud,
God.
thud. Now I go to the front of the precinct by the desk. Sergeant Edwards was there. Next thing is I pass out. I'm in the back of a radio car. All I hear is 1013. We got a detective coming in. And the blood's dripping down my fucking head. I remember the warmth of the blood coming down.
Whoa.
And then I'm laying in the mercy room. And who's laying next to me? The Hayes brothers. They're looking at me. And they're fucking looking at me thinking I'm a prisoner. Little do they know I'm a fucking cop.
Wow.
I never gave up Mickey Moran. I said I fell down the metal stairs and I hit my head like that.
Right.
Maybe that's why I'm all fucked up anyway. But the point is, these stories,
I know.
when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. That's the motto of the day.
Word of wisdom right there.
Carlo, end it out, baby.
All right, John Carlo, thanks again. We learned a lot today. It's very exciting.
You make
for
sure
this movie.
Danny,
Appalachian is going to be
you
great.
tell Danny the next rap party and the premiere. I may even come out to that dancing in the sun shit.
Come on. You're coming. You'll
Yeah,
be there.
We'll
Guest
be in
of
Park
honor.
City. If you can get us a pass, we'll be in Park City.
Guys, come on. Can you imagine us partying in Park City? It'd be amazing.
Oh, I
Let's
always
cross
wanted
our
to go
fingers.
to Sundance.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right, so
Thank you,
we
guys.
appreciate our fans. We appreciate our guests. Keep sending us emails and stay tuned. We got a big October coming up, and we're going to close out September with some great guests. John Carlo, again, the great screenwriter and actor. Follow us on social media. We're at One Tough Podcast on Twitter. Bo is at Bo Deedle on Twitter and at The Real Bo Deedle on Instagram. And you can find me at CJ Coutinho on all platforms. We are still giving away signed copies of Bo's books. This week we're giving away 2. Congrats to our winners, Mark from New Jersey and Paulie Walnuts. And we'll also get a copy to John.
My friend Sarika won it?
No, he goes by the name Paulie Walnuts.
Oh.
And he's a big fan of the show on Twitter. He always helps us out. So please share, give us a 5-star review, and subscribe. Make sure to sign up for Gas Digital using code OTP, and you'll get a discount and get a HD video, live chat, forums, and archives of all the shows on the network. And we really appreciate that. Email all our questions to onetoughpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.